I think we're
Okay,
good.
it's about 3 minutes after 9, so we're going to get started so we can stay on schedule. Like I said, I know there are a lot of busy people joining us this morning, and I appreciate that. Hello, everybody. This is MassDEP's now quarterly call with the wastewater operators. You'll recall we started this during COVID when we were meeting almost weekly, and I believe our experience was such that we thought it was worthwhile to continue to talk about COVID and other issues in this forum. I'm joined today by Kathy Baskin, our Assistant Commissioner for Water, Leldon Langley, Susie King, Mary Beth Chubb, John Murphy, and a number of other staff, both from headquarters and the regions, to make sure that we're all communicating and hearing and working on the same things that may arise out of this call. A reminder, I think you saw it on your screen, but just in case, the call is being recorded. As our practice is, we will continue to post these on our Mass website under COVID resources, FAQs, etc. John Murphy is on the call as the chair of our board of licensure, and I might ask if, John, you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and providing an update.
Yes, good morning, Commissioner. Just a quick update from the board. We are in a renewal year, December 31st, 2021. License will expire and renewals are required. The renewal letters have gone out last week. I received mine early last week. So you should be receiving those in the mail. So make sure you keep an eye out for those. Just so we know, 5,200 applications or renewal letters have gone out, which is pretty close to where they were at the end of 2019. So it is a good note there too, that we haven't lost many licenses, or we have new people coming in to cover that. So that's good. Just a reminder, all active licenses are requiring the typical 20 TCHs. And with those 20 training contact hours, there's plenty of training available. The NWPIC fall schedule is up and running, and that's going to be done virtually this fall for the most part at the beginning. MAWIA, the Massachusetts Water Environment Association, September 22nd, has a virtual quarterly meeting about practical process control. NWIA is having some of their specialty conferences in the next few months, both in person and virtual. So if you're looking for in-person training, NWIA is going to be an option for that. EPA has a bunch of free webinars, so no cost. So there's opportunity for some free training through EPA on cybersecurity and some resilience type training. And there's also correspondence training courses that are approved that can be mailed to you, filled out, taken on your own time, and mailed back. So there's plenty of opportunity available, plenty of time available. You still have three and a half more months. So there's plenty of training available. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me and we can get other courses approved. Or if you need any training ideas or push in a direction, just let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the update and appreciate you being on the call for any questions. We are joined on this call, as always, by our federal partners. I know Denny Dart and Jeff Kopf of EPA are on, but today we're also joined by Jane Downing from the Drinking Water Program because she has a number of things to talk about, upcoming training on a number of topics, reports available, and a discussion about staying in touch on the supply chain. So Jane, if I could, I'd like to ask you to unmute yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good morning, everyone. I'm usually talking to drinking water operators, so this is a big treat for me. Actually, I started in the NPDES program, so I do have, my heart does belong in some ways to the Clean Water Act folks. So start with some gifts to all of you. I'm going to amplify the training because it is free. And the first one is cybersecurity. And it is there are 2 half-day sessions. I think you have to be on both days in order to get credit. And it is going to be held in September, October, and November. So you have ample opportunities to sign up for that. And I will personally endorse these workshops. They are well done. They're done by contractors. They've had many experience with cybersecurity assessment. So if you're interested in that, you would, I think you can go on the Massachusetts COVID site. Kathy has put up all the flyers for that. Or you could Google EPA cybersecurity workshops. The next one is also interesting, and it's being hosted by EPA as well as MassDEP, so you know it will be done well. And it's all about energy and trying to be more resilient in the energy field. So these sessions, there are 3 of them, and they are being offered at the end of October. And finally, climate. So we all know that there has been a lot of extreme weather, and that challenges our infrastructure, drinking water and wastewater. NOAA has specifically offered workshops for the water infrastructure group. So there are some upcoming climate change workshops, and that is going to be held the end of September and early October. If you're interested in climate change as it relates to your system, you could Google, this one's kind of a big one, our Changing Precipitation webinar series. But I also think, again, this has been put up on the Massachusetts COVID website. In terms of new tools, there are 2 of them. One of them is for informational. We did a survey many months ago, drinking water and wastewater, to try to assess the impacts of COVID-19 on our drinking water and wastewater utilities. That report is out there, and it's there for you to download or to take a look at. Interestingly enough, the first statistics showed us that more than 1/3 of the utilities that responded did acknowledge problems with chemical shortages. So, and that was months and months ago before the big stuff hit us. So if you want to read that, that's for your information. You can Google Water Sector COVID Summary Report. And this is very exciting, if I do say so myself. There's a brand new tool for the wastewater utilities, and it is the Wastewater Utility Emergency Response Plan Template and Instructions. So I encourage you to take a look at this. It's all about giving you the tool to develop emergency response plans. We have been working that issue with the drinking water folks for years, I would say, and there are specific requirements for them. This is the first time we're offering a tool for the wastewater utility and the operators. So please avail yourself of this particular tool. It goes through the components that we've been talking about, things like cybersecurity, the pandemic, and utilize it as well for things like how do you plan for chemical shortages. So please check that one out. Again, the best way for me to do it anyways is to Google. So just Google Wastewater Utility Emergency Response Plan Template. All right, now, I've been asked to talk about the chemical shortages that we are seeing across New England and across the country. The best thing I can do before I get into it is to tell you to get on the website. So it's all laid out very specifically on the EPA website. Again, there's a number of ways to get to it. You can Google EPA 1441 process. You can Google water utility response, water sector chemical shortages. So it's all there for you to see. Just take a few moments to take a look at. I will say, because I know MassDEP and EPA are closely following this, as well as your associations, we are seeing a whole lot of cases. And I don't think that this challenge will go away in the near future. So we have seen cases where utilities are talking about problems with chlorine-derived products, sodium hypochlorite. We knew that was coming because of what we saw in the West. Liquid oxygen, we knew that was coming because of problems happening in Florida and down the south. Now we're hearing about polymers and phosphates, fluoride, and on the wastewater front, we heard problems from Rhode Island on citric acid and bisulfate. So watch for those chemicals. We're also hearing about challenges relating to UV lamps and PVC pipes. If you just look at the news, you can understand why all of this is happening. It is related to the pandemic, but also to a lot of weather events that have been happening. For the utilities, what we're hearing is that you are getting force majeure letters. You're also seeing a lot of delays and in your what you're asking for and price increases. So here's what we recommend. Number one, and these are pretty self-evident, plan ahead. Use your emergency response tools, use your contingency planning, but plan ahead. Think about what would happen if your prime supplier is not able to supply your critical chemicals. Number two, continue the coordination with MassDEP. It's very important that we get a sense of what's happening across the landscape. Is it just a localized issue? Is it a state issue? Is it in New England? Or it could be a national issue. And to understand the trends is really important so that we can understand what the fix is. Number three, if you are in a position where you're not able to adequately and reasonably acquire your chemicals, try to negotiate your contract. And for that, we are offering a letter that came out of EPA administrator, which specifically says to the chemical manufacturers, you need to prioritize drinking water and wastewater utilities. That has been used, at least in one occasion, in Massachusetts, and has helped them renegotiate their contract. So make sure that you have that letter. And again, that letter is on the Massachusetts website. If all of those options do not achieve the results that you need, and you cannot achieve reasonably your chemicals in order for you to treat, then there is the 1441 process, which I will say can take some time. So you don't want to wait until the last minute to start to think through this one. It requires an application, and that's on the website. It requires EPA to take a look at it, possibly do a federal register notice. And if the specifics of the case warrant an order, then we can go to the Department of Commerce and order them to order manufacturers to provide the critical chemicals. So it does take a while. They have, for example, 7 days. This is the Department of Commerce with which to provide the order. And it's rather complicated, but there is that option if you come to that point. So in summary, I would say plan, and plan before something happens. And in particular, look to the WARNs. That is a mutual aid program. I'm sure you all know about it, but this is a perfect example of where the WARNs might be helpful. And again, continue the close coordination with your state and with EPA. And we are there to help as the occasion arises. So I think that's all I want to say for now. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you for that comprehensive overview. And I'm going to turn a little bit to Kathy here. I think last time with the drinking water operators, we did a survey online. Are we planning to do that for this session as well?
Yes, it's a very simple survey just to get an idea of where folks are experiencing their shortages. And it's the same one that we launched yesterday. So hopefully people can see it now. And if you just take a minute to answer the few questions that we have, it won't be a comprehensive look across the sector, but it will give us an idea of how things look. So can folks see it?
Yes, Kathy, we can see it.
Yes. Okay, great. And Commissioner, while we're waiting, I wanted to comment. I've seen many of the utilities contact the regional offices at DEP when they're experiencing a shortage, and that's a really great way to get the word out through DEP over to EPA. We've also connected folks with Mass Warren, so it's been a good conduit to reach out to the regional offices when there's a problem. Or even if it's not quite an emergency, but you've gotten that letter from the chemical supplier, and it's, you know, the company is telling you they may not be able to provide what you're contracted to receive. Those also are really important for us to know about.
Absolutely, yeah. As both you and Jane highlighted, you know, even if it's just a sense, early notice is always good. So yeah, we really encourage people to continue to, to reach out as you have been, and as Kathy and Jane noted, we let our partners know so that we can gather this information, see if there are trends, start thinking about potential solutions. So very important. How are we doing on our first survey? Are we you think we've gotten everybody's answers?
I think so, yes. So here we go, and I'll share the results. Can folks see that?
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like most utilities are experiencing some difficulty in acquiring their critical chemicals. And the types of chemicals. Now, these chemicals, I worked on this survey with Jen Peterson, who's with Mass Water Works Association. So some of these may be more directed to the drinking water industry, but certainly disinfectants is the top chemical shortage difficulty that systems have been experiencing. We asked about whether utilities are having difficulty getting distribution system components like pipes, valves, or pumps. Luckily, about 2/3 say no, but 1/3 is experiencing that difficulty. Another question we had was, is your utility having difficulty getting building materials like lumber, concrete, or bricks? A small percent, 18%, have said yes. I've heard anecdotally that people might be able to get them, but it's taking a much longer time. The fifth question: do you have plans or workarounds for any issues identified above? And I would say the overwhelming majority do. If you do not, please, work on that or contact MassDEP. We can work with you to come up with a workaround. So plan, like I think Jane said, plan. So that would be really important there. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the participating in the survey, and thank you for your ongoing, communication with us on these topics. We'll hopefully start seeing some improvement at some point, but in the meantime, it's important to stay in touch in case we do see challenges that are affecting operations. One other note, as we change topics, one other thing I did want to acknowledge, and Jane being with us, this is a good time to do it. Yesterday, I did have the privilege of being participating in EPA Region 1's Environmental Merit Awards program, and some of the award winners were, in fact, the water industry, and us in government in New England, and our partners that helped us through COVID. Jane nominated the water industry for recognition and you know, again, our regulatory partners for recognition. And it was a great event. And I think it was very much appreciated when we think about where we've been over these past 18 months, where you were when you were starting and dealing with this disease, and trying to make sure that you were continuing to provide the absolutely essential public health services that you provide, thinking about staffing, thinking about inspections, thinking about personal protective equipment, any number of issues. So it was great recognition, and we really thank EPA for recognizing all of you for the work you did with us. So thank you. We have a couple of updates before we open the floor to questions, either that have come in or, you know, have come about as us participating this morning together. The first is the ongoing work of wastewater and seeing what we can learn about COVID from the wastewater. I know there's an upcoming opportunity and an upcoming effort, our continuing partnership with the Department of Public Health. I might ask Kathy Baskin if you could help, you know, explain to us these grants to assess coronavirus and wastewater. What are we looking for, and you know, how will people be either asked or encouraged to participate?
Sure. So there are 2 grant opportunities that we have in partnership with the Mass Department of Public Health. They've applied to the Centers for Disease Control, and they have also applied to the Food and Drug Administration. So these are opportunities to do BioBot type monitoring. If you recall, we talked a lot about BioBot in measuring the presence of the coronavirus in wastewater. So the first one is a smaller grant, but $60,000 to, we're looking for 2 or 3 municipal wastewater treatment facilities to participate. They'll be in areas that are sort of related to food production. So it might be a general area that has agriculture, or, you know, something like that. So that's the Food and Drug Administration. But there are certainly lots of areas that could qualify. And so we're looking for volunteers there. And if you're not sure which one you fit into, which of the 2, you can just let us know and we'll see if we can slot you in. The other one is a little bit bigger grant for $135,000. And we are looking for 20 to 27 municipal wastewater facilities to participate in sampling. They would collect samples twice a week for about 6 months. And obviously you'd be getting the data as well as the DPH and DEP. So if folks are interested, this is a great opportunity. I know that the samples cost about $300 to run at BioBot. And so this is a really good opportunity to collect some data for your system. So we encourage you to get in touch with us. I'll put my email in the chat. So if you have interest in participating or just knowing more about it, it's not a commitment. It's just in order to get more information, you can feel free to reach out to me. That's what I've got.
Connectivity issues a little bit, I think.
Sorry, am I having internet issues?
No.
You're fine, Kathy. I think the commissioner's having some connectivity issues.
Okay, got it. Yes. He's been working with IT on that recently, and so I apologize for the, for his interruption. let's see. I know we had, we did have some questions that came in, and one of them was about, it was from Mickey Nowak. I don't know if Mickey, if you're on the phone today, but Mickey was asking about the new laboratory methodology that's proposed as draft for PFAS analysis, and that was proposed by US EPA. And he's wondering how that factors into systems existing NIPDES permits, and how they should be considering that. So we did consult with US EPA, Denny Dart specifically. She's on the line today. And I don't know if, Denny, I do have your response, but if you wanted to, you know, it's up to you if you wanted to report in.
So I'm happy to report it, and thank you, Kathy. Just for those of you who might have noticed, on September 3rd, EPA published a press release saying that they had a proposed method to sample PFAS in wastewater and other media as well. It's a method that's being developed with the Department of Defense. It is not yet lab validated, and it seems from the press that it could be the end of 2022 before all that lab validation occurs. So some of you have a permit requirement for PFAS sampling. It's a placeholder requirement. Many of you don't, if you don't have new permits. My recommendation would be to look at your permit and see what the language says. Typically, it says that you should start to sample for PFAS once there is a lab. Well, it's actually a multi-lab validated method, and once you've received written notification from EPA, and then after that, there's another 6 months. So my advice is feel free to look at the EPA website and look at the new proposed method. If you want to try it, great. But as far as your requirement to sample, look at your particular permit. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Denny. Hello, Commissioner. We saw you had a little technical difficulties, so we went to the question about how to consider the new lab, the proposed lab method for wastewater sampling for PFAS. We have not done a poll, and I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say about funding or where you were at in your agenda.
Yeah, I'll just touch base briefly on it. We do talk about funding, and then we can, you know, go make sure that we're addressing, you know, other questions that we may be getting. And if you have one more poll, I don't know if you're planning to do one more poll or not. Okay. You know, on the funding issues, we've talked about them, you know, consistently through COVID. And one development many of you may have seen, and actually I know some of you even testified, and we appreciate it, with respect to the use of ARPA funds, the recovery funds. As you know, the governor has a proposal for spending $400 million on water and wastewater infrastructure. This would help. This would be in addition to the funding that is currently provided under the Clean Water Trust SRF program. And our secretary, Katie Theorides, was you know, testifying in support of it with many of you last Thursday. And you know, a lot of attention has been given to topics like CSOs and how this funding could help accelerate work on those issues for communities that are dealing with them. It also can help with other wastewater and drinking water projects. So it's a unique opportunity. We're going to continue to explore it. Again, we saw a number of you present and testifying. It was an over 6-hour hearing. We appreciate that, and we're going to continue to try to make sure that this money, which is designed to be spent, you know, over the next few years, you know, is allocated and you know, put to good use for the communities that need them. We also, in the context of this group, we've talked several times about, you know, the impacts that COVID's had on rates, consumer rates, people not being able to pay their bills. And when, you know, a few months ago, we started hearing about the money that was allocated in one of the relief bills for low-income household drinking water and wastewater emergency assistance for people that are having a hard time paying their bills. And we have heard, and I think Jen Peterson may have an update on this, as she did for the drinking water, if I could put Jen on the spot. But this program will be, when the funding comes, it will be administered by our Department of Housing and Community Development. They have to submit a plan to the federal government. They published a draft plan for public comment on August 31st to keep this program moving. But Jen, knowing of your ongoing work with DHCD, the utilities, and learning what you have about the federal government, I didn't know if you wanted to offer an update to this group.
Sure, thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, we have been working closely with Ed Kiley at Department of Housing and Community Development on the rollout of this program. So as the Commissioner said, the comments were due, and that plan has been submitted to federal HHS for approval. So we still have a couple steps before it can roll out in Massachusetts. But the idea is that at some point there will need to be agreements between utilities and the service providers. So the community organizations who administer the LIHEAP program, your utility will have an agreement with them, which will allow for the disbursement of funds to your utility to pay those arrearages. And you know, DHCD is grappling a little bit with this just because of the guidance from the federal government on the need to prioritize those people who have been shut off or are in danger of being shut off. And a lot of times in Massachusetts, we're not actually doing shutoffs. We're, you know, leaning properties or doing other things. And so that's one of the things they're grappling with. But we are, Mass Water Works is holding a roundtable on September 22nd to discuss this issue of customer payments and check in at least with the water utilities to see how they're doing on collecting arrearages. And Ed Kiley is going to join us for that. And certainly I'll put my email in chat. And if any of the wastewater utilities want to join us on that roundtable, happy to have you as well. But there are a few more steps, and it doesn't look like the funding will roll out probably until later this year. And it does require the ratepayer to be LIHEAP eligible. So there is a step that the ratepayers themselves will have to go through to qualify for LIHEAP eligibility before they'll be able to access the water funding. So thanks, Commissioner.
Thanks, and thanks for that update, Jen. So with that, you know, Kathy, I think you said you had one more survey like we did with Jen on the drinking water side yesterday. I think you wanted to go through that, and then we can open the floor for questions that we're getting either through chats, emails, or things people want to raise, you know, in real time here.
That's right. We did have a question come in actually through the wastewater sector, but I sent it over to Jen too, since it was applicable to both sectors, asking about vaccination and COVID testing and what was required at the utilities. And so I'll launch that now. So hopefully you can see it. There are only two questions this time. One about vaccination and the other about COVID testing. I'll just wait another, looks like most people probably have responded, but I'll just wait another half a minute. Okay.
And when you report, if you could also let us know how many people were responding to the survey when they did, that would be great.
Yes, so we do have a lot of people from the state or from the federal government on the call. So 20 people have responded, and here are the results. So with respect to requiring vaccinations for employees, 3 systems out of 20 or 15% are requiring vaccinations, while 13 are definitely not. And there's at least 3 systems that are thinking about it right now, so they're maybe on the fence. With respect to the COVID testing, regular COVID testing, there is 1 system out of 20 that is requiring that for all employees. Most of the systems, however, are not. So there are the results, and I'll stop sharing. And thanks very much to everybody for participating. It's great. These are questions that we were interested in, but this was actually a question from one of you who wanted to know what his peer systems were doing. So I think that's it. I do see there are a couple of questions that have come in through the chat. And let's see, there's a question on promulgating regulations for the sewage notification law that the governor signed earlier this year, and looking for a status update.
Yep.
And so
Why don't
that's
we go
the
to
first
that
question.
first? Yeah, and it's a good question and a timely question. And we have been working on it. As you know, Kathy and Leldon and Susie have actually been working with some of you, some of the stakeholders, representing different perspectives to make sure that we have as much input as possible before we propose a draft rule. And we've been doing that. And I think we would expect to see the draft rule very soon. I would certainly say by October, there will be a public comment rule that you can all react to, so that we can stay on the schedule of having the rules in place in the time frame that's called for in the legislation. So we will keep you posted as this goes forward, but we're in the final stages. We've received a lot of really good, thoughtful input. There were a lot of important technical issues that you guys raised that we wanted to make sure we fully address. So watch this space, but it's coming very soon.
And the other question that came in is there any information on office reopening? Also, will inspections and permit renewals be on a normal schedule again?
Right, both great questions. So far, and it is worth reiterating. So far, we're continuing to, by and large, be working remotely at DEP. As you know, we're also, given our experience, particularly in Boston, we're actually likely to be doing this on a more permanent basis. As you know, we're looking at consolidating the amount of space needed so that we can have a hybrid model of remote and in-office work. Again, Boston will start, but for right now, we're all continuing to work remotely. Having said that, we're trying to make sure that we are hitting all the permit targets, the approval targets that we and you need us to hit. So we are attempting to make sure that we are working thoughtfully with public safety still very much in mind. There's still administration-wide protocols we have to make sure that we are meeting as we start thinking about things like inspections. There will always be the health related questions that we will need to be asked while we're still dealing with COVID, but we're attempting to make sure that the flow of work continues, even as we as a state government are transitioning to this this, hybrid model of work, both remotely and in the office. So I would encourage you, even though we're still mostly working remotely, continue to reach out to your contacts in the regional and headquarters offices. We're continuing to make sure that we can be connected via phone, via email, via other means of technology to make sure that we're in contact in all the ways we could be. And again, if there are things requiring in-person presentations, it's still a bigger discussion where we need to make sure that we are protecting, the public we serve as well as our own employees. But we can work through those issues. So do not be hesitant about identifying a need like that, and we will work with you.
I don't see any other questions in the chat or nor have any come in through the email. So maybe they could unmute. And Commissioner, I did get some a couple of requests already by email for information about the grants. So I'll get that information out to you folks, and anybody else who wants it, please do get in touch with me, because we are looking for about 24 systems. So it's a great opportunity.
Okay, anybody want to unmute themselves and raise an issue here while we're all together? Okay, if not hearing anything, we will continue to stay in touch. Kathy indicated some of the information we'll be putting forward to. There's a commitment for us to stay engaged on certain rulemakings, as we have on any number of issues throughout. In the meantime, Kathy, do we have a date for our next get together that are quarterly?
Yes, December 15th, which is a Wednesday at 9 o'clock.
Terrific. So I'm sure we'll be communicating in different ways before then, but in the meantime, save that date and we will get together as this group again on December 15th. And thanks everybody for participating. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.